here right now with you. Your love is all I need. I breathe you in. I'm not in a hurry to leave this place, your heart. And I hear you singing over me. So whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do, I just want to be with you. Wherever you want to go, however you want to move, I just want to be with you. Just want to be with you. The more I learn about you, the more I want to know. There's so much to you. A lifetime is not enough. Thank God I know forever you'll be singing over me. So whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do, I just want to be with you. Wherever you want to go, however you want to move, I just want to be with you. So whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do, I just want to be with you. Wherever you want to go, however you want to move, I just want to be with you. Just want to be with you. The very air I breathe, the life inside of me, the song I have to sing, how I love you. And you are the fire in my bones, the burning in my soul. I wanna tell the world how I love you. And you are the very air I breathe, the life inside of me, the song I have to sing, how I love you. And you are the fire in my bones, the burning in my soul. I wanna tell the world how I love you. So whatever you wanna say, whatever you wanna do, I just wanna be with you. Wherever you wanna go, wherever you wanna move, I just wanna be with you. 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 So whatever you wanna say, whatever you wanna do, I just wanna be with you. Wherever you wanna go, however you wanna move, I just wanna be just wanna be with you. Dear God, thank you so much for bringing us all together. We love you so much, and we want you to open our eyes and our hearts and listen to your voice. And whatever you want to do and whatever you want to say, we just want to be listening and able and hearing your voice and doing just that. We love you. Amen.
Hey guys, welcome to Venture Church. We're so glad that you could be here with us this morning. If you're a guest, if you're new to Venture, we just want to say thanks so much for joining us. And, if you want, after the service, you could head out to the Welcome Center, and we'd love to just meet you and to find more about who you are and how you ended up at Venture. But you can also fill out an online guest card, which can be found at ven.church. And then there's a link at the top where you can find the online guest card. So again, if you want to just fill that out, it helps us know who you are, how you ended up here, and we just would love to connect with you and get to know you and give you more information about who Venture Church is. We got a couple things. So Venture Groups started, a couple met last week. If you don't know anything about Venture Groups, we're starting this new thing called Venture Groups where you can meet with a group of other ventures, and it's all about learning and growing together. A couple of them met this last week. And they went really well. If you'd like to be a part of a venture group, you can sign up at ven.church. You go to ven.church, the weekly, and then there's a link there where you can sign up, and we'll get you into a group. It's a great way to grow outside of Sunday mornings. We have some information about venture students and venture kids. So this week, there is no venture students. They'll be back next week. And then also, there's an Alpha Youth Weekend that's going to be November 3rd through the 5th. But the Venture Kids midweek is happening, and that's this week. That's Wednesday, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Next Sunday, you're going to be hearing baptism stories. We had 4 people from Venture, along with people from The Journey and from Restore, get baptized in the summer. And so we're going to be hearing their stories. It's a great service to come to. Just to hear about what God is doing in the lives of some ventures. So it's going to be a great week. And then also today, after the service, we got 4,000 door hangers. What we want to do is we want to pass those out to the community because there's lots of hurting people who don't know God and might not even feel comfortable coming to church, but we have an opportunity to invite them into a relationship with God. And that sometimes starts by coming to a church and getting to know people and attending and then learning about God. So passing those out is a great way that we can just maybe, reach out to people, and maybe they'll grab that, and maybe that's what it takes for them to be like, yeah, maybe I'll try a church. So we're going to be doing that after church today. So again, I just want to thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to continue. Right now, we're going to have a quick video. It'll be 3 minutes long. This is where you can bring your kids out to Venture Kids. You can grab some coffee, use a restroom, take a few minutes to stretch, and then Braden will be up for the message. Thanks, guys.
good morning, and again, welcome to Venture. My name is Braden. If we haven't met before, I'd love to take some time to get to know you. I was just listening to the lyrics of that last song. I don't know, when you think about what God thinks of you, kind of what you hear in your own mind. That God doesn't really care. God's angry. Sing this song, it says, "We hear you singing over me." I just think it's a beautiful lyric that tells us really what God thinks of us, that he delights in us. But one of the things that maybe we just don't do that good a job with in our world, our culture, is understanding that songs aren't always just upbeat pop songs. They're not always just the Taylor Swift kind of life. That sometimes songs are about grief and lament. And I want you to know that it is okay, too, if there are seasons in life where you just need to know that God is also grieving over the state of our world and what's happening. And there's a way that you can understand that singing over somebody, a way to love somebody, is to be with them in that as well. And so that's just kind of where my heart is at this morning is we want to look forward and we want to celebrate all that God is doing in our world, but we have to grieve with a lot of people in our world, that there's just so much heartache. And the only hope that we see as a church is the hope that this isn't the end of the story. The war and the disease and the conflict and the heartache, there's more to the story than that Jesus has overcome all of this. And he's working at making all things right in our world. And someday this will be all gone, and we place our hope in that, and we want to be part of that story. As we're going this morning, as we've been in this series, The Way, we're several weeks now, and we've got a long way to go still, and I hope you never get tired of looking at what God was doing in those first followers of Jesus, restoring them and redeeming them, setting them on a mission, inviting them to participate in everything that he was doing in the world. But we're going to keep going as we see what it looks like to be part of God's movement in this world. But today, I want to take a dive into maybe a pivot that we see in the book of Acts. We're going to be looking at Acts chapter 3, but I just want you to think for a second. And I actually want you to discuss throughout the week with some others in a venture group. There's some conversation around our own perspectives on this, but do you consider yourself like part of the in crowd, or do you consider yourself more like an outsider? Or maybe there's a middle ground in there for you to talk with somebody else about. I know for me, personally, I don't know what it is. There's something about my shape that you could put me in a room full of people that my height, my age, my hair color, my same name, and my family of origin, and I would still feel like the guy that doesn't fit in. I don't really know why that is. There's just something about me that from a young age I've kind of felt like, I just don't know that I belong here. Even though I'm up on stage at a church of people that love me and I love being part of this community, at times I'm like, I just wonder if I belong here. And I'm so grateful to be part of that, because I think in part what makes our church unique is there are many people that feel the same, and we get together and be like, yeah, me too. Let's keep going together. But wherever you're at, what do you consider yourself to be like? Part of the in crowd, or you more of an outsider in the world? Maybe just another question for you to think through and maybe discuss with some others. But what do you consider the best life? Like we've used that phrase a lot in the past. We believe that your best life is found in a relationship with Jesus. But if you had to define what your best life would be, what would your best life look like? How would you describe that? Because I think we're going to see this morning so there's sort of this collision between an inside group and an outsider, and this understanding of what maybe best life looks like for each of us. But I think really where this story that we're going to look at this morning kind of comes to bear is, what does the good news of Jesus as played out in churches in our community, what should it mean to the surrounding community for us? Like, if a bunch more churches were started in Muskegon right now, people at your workplace, people in your school, what should they think about that? And the truth is, in our world, I don't actually know that that's always considered a positive thing. I think when the church is working at its best, it should be something that the world around us embraces and said, this will be a net good for our community. People that are serving and selfless and sharing hope and loving others well. But a lot of times, especially people that are outside the church or maybe been hurt by churches, they're like, oh, another church, another group of this kind of people. And we want to dig into this morning, because I think when we're looking at what's happening in these first followers of Jesus, it's really incredible to see what's happening in their lives. But we actually almost lose what it means to be a follower of Jesus because of our current cultural understanding of that language. When I asked you to be a follower of something, what does that mean? Usually that means you've clicked a button somewhere, right? And all of a sudden you're going to get updates from that group, from that person, from that celebrity. Maybe every once in a while you'll be invited to an event, or you'll be invited to buy something or donate to something. But for the most part, when we talk about being a follower these days, it's like being an observer without it having any actual direct impact on your day-to-day life. But these first followers of Jesus, what it meant for them to be followers is it meant they left their families, they left their jobs, they left their communities, they left their homes for years. They went where Jesus went, and they traveled with him, and they experienced the incredible things that Jesus did, but they also suffered alongside Jesus in the wanting and the struggle and the persecution and the humiliation. And so a couple thousand years ago, what it meant to be a follower of Jesus was I was putting my life as I know it on hold so that I could give everything to follow him. And these days, when we talk about being a follower of something, it's like, yeah, I like what they're about. I'll check in once in a while. It's just a very different perspective. And what we're seeing in the book of Acts is it's not just about what happened there. It's an invitation to participate in God's story. It's an invitation for us to take the same consideration that those first followers had. To say, what does it look like for me to maybe put some parts of my life on hold to pursue Jesus? What if that costs me my job, my community, my family, my home, any of those things? Is the God of the universe who came in flesh, conquered death, not enough? So we're going to jump in this morning, and we're going to look at both what it means for this passage for us to impact us individually, but also what does this mean for our church, and what does following Jesus mean for the community around us? And really, this is a shift. These first two chapters we've been looking at. We've been looking at what God has been doing in these small group of followers as they're experiencing Jesus and trying to grow in that. But now we're going to see the shift. What does it mean for the people around? So let's just jump in and read Acts chapter 3. We're in verses 1 through 10. There are some questions on the Bible app or on our website. There's the Venture Group's guide that you can find. It's a way for you to discuss this with some other people throughout the week. It says this: one day Peter and John were going up to the temple at the time of prayer at 3 p.m. Now a man was lame from birth, was being carried to the temple gate, called Beautiful, where he was put every day to beg from those going to the temple courts. When he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked for money. Peter looked straight at him, as did John. Then Peter said, "Look at us." So the man gave them his attention, expecting to get something from them. Then Peter said, "Silver or gold I do not have, but what I do have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, walk." Taking him by the right hand, he helped him up, and instantly the man's feet and ankles became strong. He jumped to his feet and began to walk. Then he went with them into the temple courts, walking and jumping and praising God. When all the people saw him walking and praising God, they recognized him as the same man who used to sit begging at the temple gate called Beautiful. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened to him. If you had to put yourself in this story, say you were one of these characters, you have these couple of guys that are heading into temple, or this guy outside the gate that is kind of desperate, or just an onlooker, where do you put yourself in this story? Say, yeah, I'm passionately pursuing Jesus with everything I have, and I'm sharing with anybody I can, or you kind of put yourself in this situation like, I don't even know how to ask for help. I'm so lost. I feel like I just need God to act in my life in ways that I can't even begin to understand. Or are you just part of the crowd saying, hey, I want to see something incredible happen. Even something I can't totally explain. But I think there's ways that we can see each kind of group, the insider, the outsider, the onlooker in this story, and we're going to unpack this this morning. But I think when we think about it, we're desperate to maybe experience God do something in our lives or for us. But the truth is, maybe it would mean more for us to watch God do something through our lives. Say, God, I don't need something. I want you to work in my life. I want to use it. Or would it mean more to you to say, hey, God, would you do something in other people's lives? That maybe they would experience transformation and hope and healing in our world. We get these kind of different perspectives. Here's this guy. He's the outsider in this perspective. He's the one that's on the outside of the temple courts. He has a reputation. We get these guys that are the insiders, the first followers of Jesus, Peter and John. The truth is, we see them over the scope of church history as some of the greatest humans to ever walk the face of the earth, but they were ordinary, everyday men. In fact, they had reputations themselves. And what made them extraordinary is not anything that they did. It was just the fact that they were witnesses to who Jesus was, and they were empowered by the power of God's Spirit to be some of the early leaders of those first followers of Jesus. They had become sort of the insiders. But it's only because God rescued them from what would have been sort of an ordinary, outsider-focused kind of life. And then we see the community around watching. Maybe they've heard some stories about what Jesus was doing. And they say, is this really true? And what's interesting about this story is how many times did Jesus heal people in the New Testament? I don't know the number. Maybe you do. But it was a lot, right? Jesus did miracle after miracle after miracle. And what's interesting is this is kind of an elaboration of what we saw in Acts chapter 2 that said one of the common things that happened in those first followers of Jesus is people were healed. And it says, like this. That's basically what they're doing is saying, and elaborating what this means. But this one incident actually ends up taking up all of Acts chapter 3 and all of Acts chapter 4. You're like, Jesus did a whole bunch of stuff. They didn't spend chapters on it. But what's unique about this passage, and maybe the reason there's a pivot here, and the focus on it in the book of Acts is because this is the first time that people that they knew were ordinary were doing something unbelievable. See, it's one thing to say the Son of God came, divinity in flesh came and walked amongst us and healed people. That's one thing to celebrate. And all of a sudden, like, wait, what's happening? We know these guys. We know the only thing that's unique about them is they spent 3 years following this guy named Jesus. But other than that, they are just like us. And there's this like focus and emphasis to say, well, if God's doing this in ordinary people's lives, what does that mean for the rest of us around? So it says this about this guy. Now a man who was lame from birth was being carried to the temple gate called Beautiful, where he was put every day to beg from those going into the temple courts. What we learn in Acts chapter 4 is this guy was actually 40 years old, which in their day and age would have been a whole lifetime of desperation and begging. And this isn't a one-off accident that happened to him and people felt bad because he had been normal. From the day he was born, this is what life has been like. Desperate and helpless. Luckily enough, he had some friends that cared about him enough to get him to the temple every day. But his whole life was asking people, I have nothing except what you might give to me. And it's interesting to note that he wasn't inside the temple where the groups gathered. They put him at the outside of the temple, at the gate where people would come and go. And there's a whole lot to unpack that we don't have time this morning. But the bottom line is, in his culture and society, there would have been a lot of people that would have assumed something was wrong with him and he wasn't good enough to maybe make it inside. That the best they could do for him is put him at the outside where the good people, the insiders, maybe they would help him. But you and I have had experiences like this all the time in our lives. We see people on the sidewalks or the streets asking for help. It's a complex issue. But I think, at least in my own life, my temptation is just to look right past them. Just to pretend they're not there, or say, well, you should find resources elsewhere in my own mind, or something like that. And so think about the people that would have been coming in and out of the temple. How many times he would have been looked right over. People would just, it's that guy again. And if we put ourselves in that guy's shoes, it's not hard to see that all this guy is living for is hoping that he can basically get through another day. Hoping that somebody might notice him. Hoping that maybe he's not overlooked again and again and again. But I think there's some of you here this morning that might feel like that. Feel like you've made too much of a mess of your life. Made too many mistakes. Maybe like this guy, you've got a reputation. Like, I'm just tired of people giving up on me. I want something to change, but I don't even know where to look. I've almost given up on hope. And that's where I want to see that there is an incredible hope for us. Let's keep going. It says this in verse 3. When he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for money. Again, he's probably thinking they're just going to ignore me. Peter and John are just these ordinary, everyday guys that have been transformed by Jesus. Peter looked straight at him. John did too. Then Peter said, look at us. So the man gave them his attention, expecting to get something from him. I think it's interesting. These guys are just two ordinary men, but they've been changed by Jesus. And they see this guy, and he calls for their attention, and they say, hey, look at us. Well, what's he thinking now? Hey, somebody paid attention to me. Maybe he'll give me some money, some food, something like that. What are people expecting from followers of Jesus when we ask them for our attention? What are people expecting from the church when we call for their attention? I think a lot of people are going to say, I bet you're going to tell me what I'm doing wrong. I'm going to tell you why you should be in church. I'm going to tell you what you're missing out on. And tell you why you're going to hell. I don't know how crazy we want to get on all. But when people that are following Jesus call for outsiders' attention, I think there might be an impression of what they should be expecting in the midst of this. And here's this guy, and he's hoping for something. And here's what he's offered. Then Peter said, silver or gold I do not have. But what I do have, I give you in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Walk. Taking him by his right hand, he helped him up, and instantly the man's feet and ankles became strong. He said, I don't have any of the things that you're used to getting. A little bit of food, a little bit of money, a little bit of help. All I have to give you is the same thing that has radically changed my life, and that's the person and the hope of Jesus. That by the power of God and the work of the Holy Spirit, and these first followers of Jesus says, he can change everything about your life. And that's when we see that when we have nothing to offer but Christ, we're making room for the possibility that could happen. Because I think sometimes we walk across that person on the road and we say, well, it's $5. Here's my leftovers from lunch. And that might be nice gestures of mercy and compassion. But when we really think about it, is there a better gift to offer others than the hope of Jesus? It says, whatever circumstances you're experiencing in this life, however hard it's been, there is a God at work in the world right now that can change everything about who you are. And we see the way that this guy responded in verse 8. He jumped to his feet and began to walk. Then he went with them into the temple courts, walking and jumping and praising God. Like, I think it would probably be a little odd to go to space someday and feel the weightlessness thing because you've never experienced it in your life. And here's this guy for the first time in his life. It's not only he has never walked anywhere, he's never jumped anywhere. It's got to be like an out-of-this-world kind of experience. And his life is changed, and his response is jumping and rejoicing, and his reality was inclusion. Because here's this guy who has spent his entire life on the outside. And he met these people that had nothing to offer him but just Jesus. And it changed everything for him. Venture people, whether you're first time here this morning or you've been here way longer than me or anything about that, I think sometimes we make too little of the fact that Jesus is enough. And I think even in our own lives, our response is way more timid than this guy. Yeah, Jesus, he's cool. Pretty good. Thumbs up. How often is our response to what Jesus has offered us and is doing here in this room, venture groups, alpha, kids, all this stuff, how often is our response just like this guy saying, I spent so much of my life hopeless, and Jesus has changed everything. And what I love about this passage is here's this guy that spent his entire life on the outside, being overlooked. And what is the first thing he does besides jumping up? He goes into the temple with Peter and John, the place where the in-crowd gathers, the people that believe they were good enough, the people that wanted to experience God together in this way of worship. He joined Peter and John in what was just their regular rhythm as these first followers. Thing they did every day. They'd go to the temple to pray together and pursue the ways of Jesus together. And they look at this guy that had spent his life on the outside. And all of a sudden, he becomes an insider with them. Not so that he could use it against anybody else, just so that he was welcomed into a new community, a new family. And this is what it says the people responded. It says, when all the people saw him walking and praising God, they recognized him as the same man who used to sit begging at the temple gate called Beautiful. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened to him. This guy had a reputation. Everybody in the community thought they knew exactly who he was and probably had assumed that nothing could ever change in his life. And some of you have reputations too. I do too. And we put people in these little boxes. And we say, that's all that person is, and that's all that person could ever be. But not according to Jesus. And not according to the power of God at work in these lives of these first followers. And not according to what God wants to do here in our own community. Because this guy had a reputation. It's one where for 40 years of his life, he'd been crippled and desperate and hauled to the outside courts of the temple so that he could get help. And what we see is that God is always working in, through, and for others. And the way that the watching community responded was through wonder and amazement. If you're somebody here with a reputation and you feel like, I don't know, people have assumed things about me, what could your story be if Jesus were to change everything for you like this guy? Maybe your friends, maybe your coworkers, maybe your neighbors, your classmates, maybe they would respond in the same way. I didn't know that was possible. That guy, that girl, I didn't know they could change. and yet see what God is doing in and through their lives. And here's what we see as a church. And here's what we see happening in the scene. Peter and John could have said, we're busy. We got places to go. We're influential people. People are depending on us. And they could have walked right past this guy. Instead, they stop and they look at this outsider. And they say, hey, we got nothing for you other than the hope of Jesus. But if you want that, we will share it with you to the fullest. And we see that these first followers of Jesus understand the importance of focusing outward towards others. And as a church, we believe that the best life is the one focused outward towards others. In fact, I was listening to a podcast a while back, a professor and a psychologist, and quite frankly, a sort of controversial public figure, because he's not willing to kind of pull any punches. Jordan Peterson says this. He says, the more you think about yourself, the more unhappy you are. And I think that's the reverse of what our world tells us. Find yourself. Be the best version of yourself, whatever it looks like. Everything in our world says, just do what makes you happy. Instead, what we understand from research and through the Bible and these first followers of Jesus is the more you focus on yourself, the more unhappy you become. Because that becomes a small world, but the best life is the one where we're focused outwards. How can I help? How can I bless others? How can I make a difference? How can I be a friend? How can I love more with my life? And what we see as a church is the more we focus our lives on others, the better our own lives become. The more we give, the richer and more blessed we become in our own lives. It's almost as if Jesus had something to say about this himself. In Matthew chapter 20, he says this, not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. As a church, I think I've sort of given you over the last few weeks some of the things that we're going to continue to focus on. We celebrated Alpha, and Alpha kicked off this last week. It's been an incredible gift to our community and people that are exploring relationship with Jesus. And we celebrated what is happening in kids and students in our midst. And we're going to continue to pursue venture groups. And we want you to explore and take steps in groups together. But this isn't just about what we can get out of stuff. Our programs, our activities, Sunday services. We want to be an outward-focused church where we're saying, how can we respond to the needs of our community? How can we allow God to work in our lives in such a way that the onlooking world would respond with awe and wonder in our lives? So there's a few ways that we're focused on doing this. One is we've had partners around the world for years, and we're continuing to partner with Compassion International in Santa Rosa, Peru, and we'll have some updates about that in a few weeks, but we continue to try to make a difference in kids over there. We've been helping Restore Church get off the ground, and we continue to financially support them throughout the days ahead. And I just want to give you a quick update that the last couple weeks, Restore's had like 40 to 45 people showing up, which means they're headed in the right direction. It's been, especially coming out of COVID and stuff like that, there are days that say we're going to make. And they have a lot to celebrate, and we want to continue cheering them on as a church. In a few weeks, I'll introduce this idea, but we have the opportunity to maybe take on a church planner in Haiti, one of the most heartbreaking cultural and political situations in the entire world. We get the opportunity to support what God is doing there. But as a church, we want to continue to say, hey, what's going on out there? How can we share this hope of Jesus? We might not have a lot to give, but how do we continue to share this with our community? So the last thing that Aaron just mentioned today, after service, we've got these door hangers, and that we're just going to meet together. We're going to head out to some different communities, and we're hoping to get these out to as many people as possible. And I'll just ask you this, and if you can't stay afterwards, to help grab some and just walk around your neighborhood and hang them. If you're at school, maybe take some and put them on some friends' lockers, something like that. But we're going to go out in some smaller groups this afternoon. Some of you I know are like, I don't want to do that. Well, guess what? I would prefer if you found somebody today that is lame and walked up to them and proclaimed the hope of Jesus and watched them walk. I would prefer that to happen. If you're not up for that, or if that seems a little bit scary for you, I would prefer that you find a coworker this week and have a conversation about the hope of Jesus. Maybe lead them through the 4 spiritual laws or the bridge diagram this week. I would prefer that. But if that seems a little bit scary to you as well, how about some door hangers? It's not just an invitation to our church. It's an invitation to maybe experience the Jesus who's radically transforming the lives of outsiders in our world. We're going to continue to be a church that says, what does our community need? How can we reach out and how can we serve? I'm excited about some of the projects we have coming up, the Yard Ambush next month, and we'll continue to share stuff like that. That's who we're going to be as a church, saying, how do we share this hope with an looking world? Would you pray with me? God, so often it's easy for our world to become inward focused. What does this mean for me? How do I get what I want? What's most important to me? Yet the King of the universe, the God who put on flesh, the perfect Son, the sacrificial lamb came and said, I didn't come to be served, but I came to serve and give my life away for others. And God, that's the hope that we lean into as a church. That trying to find ourselves will never be enough until we find ourselves in you and are willing to pour ourselves out, sharing the hope of Jesus with a hurting and watching world, God. Would you give us courage? Would you give us grace and kindness as we go about our days? God, would you help us be the kind of people that look at the world and say, I got nothing for you except for Jesus. May that be enough. May it be enough to transform my life, the lives of the people here, and may it be enough to transform our community. We love you. Amen.
Hey guys, we're going to sing a couple more songs if you guys want to stand and join us. So this next song, we're just talking about being available to God. He might call us to do things. I just want us to be available to listen to what he wants us to do and say and be there for him and just let him know that he's enough for us. So will you sing with me and let him know that he's enough today? Narrow as the road may seem, I'll follow where your spirit leads. Broken as my life may be, I will give you every piece. I hear you call, I am available. I say, yes, Lord, I am available. I just wanna see you move. I hear you call. I am available. I say yes, Lord. I am available. I hear you call. I am available. I say yes, Lord. I am available. My heart is open wide. My hands are open wide. Come do whatever you want to. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it all. Here I am. Here I am. You can have it all. You can have it for the one who gave me life. Nothing is a sacrifice. Oh, use me how you want to, God. Have your throne within my heart. I hear you call. I am available. I say yes, Lord. I am available. who I am. Hey guys, have a great week. Don't forget, we're passing out door hangers. There's a bunch of them on that table if you're not able to stay and you want to take them to your neighborhood as well. But hope you have a great week, guys.
Good Father,